Welcome to the software lesson for Mommy and Me Matching Aprons by Marie Zeno. This software lesson is done with Perfect Embroidery Pro software, and it's very simple and requires no other designs because everything we're going to use is built into the software. Let's get started. First, make sure you have a clean design page. I just created a new design by clicking on the file New. Then go up to the top left-hand corner of your screen, and where you see the M on top of what looks like a book, these are your monogram designs. We're going to use one of those. So click on it to open the catalog. Next, we'll select one of these designs that were created to be used with lettering for beautiful, unique monograms. It's very simple to do. Wouldn't that be cute on a fishing shirt? Or on a little girl's robe. The one we're going to use today is monogram 17095, and it's just a swirly design that's kind of cool. So we'll click and say open. Now when it comes in onto our screen, it is already grouped, as you can see here. If I click on any part of it, it stays together, which works really well for what we're going to do. The first thing is we're going to rotate it 45 degrees to the right. Now, the rotation right tool is right here. You could also go in and manually turn it with this tool here, or go into transform and rotate it. There's lots of ways to do things in the software. So whichever one you're most comfortable with. I prefer the icons because they're right there and it tells me which direction I'm going and what the icon's for. So I click that once for 45 degrees and click it again for 90 degrees. To get it back where I can see it in the center of my design screen, I could go to my percentage of zoom and say to fit, but the easiest way to do it is to right click on the ruler bar and then left click on center origin. And look at that. Not only completely visible on the design page, but it puts the center of the design at the 0 point axis of my design page. So now we have our grouped design, and we're not going to resize it because it's perfect just the size that it is, but we're going to copy it and paste it, or we could simply click on duplicate and then click, and you'll notice up here it's put another one in there for me. How easy is that? What I want to do here is just pull it down to where it's in the same area, and then instead of rotating it all the way around, I'm just going to flip it horizontally by using my flip horizontal icon right here. And there you go. Let's center origin. And now it didn't line those up, but it gets it back where I can see them very well. And the first thing I notice is it's a little bit off. Well, this software has great alignment tools. I click the first one to select it, then hold the Control key down and click the second one. And I want it to align across this vertical center align. It'll align through the center of my design and put these on the same axis. Now, those are just barely overlapped there. I could scooch them in a little bit if I want to, or leave them out. I could make any adjustments at this point. I like it really right where it is. I've got a little bit of a gap there, and that's just fine. Now we have our background put together. What I want to do at this point is so that we keep it exactly where we want it and we don't deal with those two elements independently. I could select it as I did before, or pull a box around it and select it all. Now I'm going to group these two together so that they act as one design. Now when I click anywhere, it selects both of them. And you'll see why that'll come in handy here in just a moment. Now our next step is to add a letter for our monogram. I can use up here in the top left-hand corner, I can use the text tool or I could use the monogram tool. They both use all of the same fonts that are built into the software. The difference is with the monogram tool, it's going to put 3 letters up there with the center letter larger, and that's a great time-saving device if you're doing a 3-letter monogram. However, this time I'm just doing a 1-letter. So I'm going to select my text tool. I'm going to come down here and change my color because I want it to be different from the gray that I have up on the screen for my design. So I will right-click down here at the bottom on the red. And of course, I could make that any color I want to just by clicking on the thread and changing it. So if we wanted this to be more of a Christmas red or a flame red, that's cool. What's that, cardinal? Ooh, that's pretty. Ruby red. Let's do ruby. And click OK. Now I just have to click on the screen and it will put the letter A up there for me. To change it to the letter I want for my monogram, I simply come over here to the Properties text box on the upper right-hand side. And in my text box right here, you see there's the A. I'm going to erase that and put in an M. Then I want to select my font. This one happens to be Diana, which is a lovely cursive font, and it tells me all the different size ranges it comes in and the different characters I can use. But I'm going to scroll down here through these, and I can just use my arrow key until I find the one I want, which is Elegant Script. One more change before we apply this, and that is I want the height of my letter to be 3 inches. So I enter 3.3 inches and apply. Now I have my nice large M in a satin stitch monogram. And if I zoom out on here so I can see everything, it's not centered at all nicely in there. I can center it myself, or I can simply select everything. And remember, we have the background grouped. So when I aligned center here, or center align, by clicking that, it's not going to put this side of the background over that side. Now, this does a mathematically centered alignment. Depending on the shape of your letter, you may want to adjust that a little bit. I'd like it to show a little bit more of this element here so it looks a little more even, because the mathematical center is not always the visual center. So I'm going to move it around till I get it where I want it. And let's see. Let's center origin again and look at it in 3D by clicking on our 3D icon over here on the left-hand side of the screen. I like the way it looks. I like the way it fits on the background. Oh, I could scooch it over this way just a smidgen. And I could actually sit and do this all day and never stitch a stitch. So we'll stop. Okay, so that looks good. If I want to look at it in actual size, I can click the down arrow on my zoom and say make it 1:1. And there it is in actual size. That's going to look really nice. Now, one thing you will notice when it's in 3D view is that this satin stitching is too wide, really. If it was a straight satin and it made the jump from this side to this side, it would be too big of a stitch. It would easily get caught on things and could tend to be droopy and all of that. So there's a parameter set in our settings that's automatic unless you change it to make your satin stitch split so that it still gives the look of a satin, but you see it's randomly taking a needle drop inside of here so that your satin stitch stays really nice and pretty. Now, there's one more thing I want to do before we save our design to stitch it. Let me take it off of 3D so you can see. You see we've got lots of stitches underneath our monogram. And I think it would behoove us to get rid of any extra stitches underneath there so that that M isn't bumpy and it lays very smooth and has that beautiful satin finish. To do that, I simply click on the M or my letter, and then if I right click, it's going to give me all the things I can do with it, and one of them is to remove overlaps. So wherever the M overlaps whatever's behind it, it's going to remove those stitches. Let's see, if I click on the M and come over here and turn off the eyeball, you can see what the difference is. Let me undo where I took them out, and let's turn it off. So you can see there's all the stitches are there. Turn it back on, right click, remove overlaps. Let's hide it. And you see it's removed all those stitches underneath. So now this is going to be just perfect. And we'll bring the M back in there, so when we save it, it's there. Now to save the file, I'm going to come up here to the top right-hand side of the screen, select File, and Save As. I can select the location, in this case my removable disk or my thumb drive, and assign it a different name. I'm going to call this Apron M, and I don't want to save it in the C2S format because that's my native format. I need to save it in the stitch format for my machine, which will be EXP. And click Save, and that's all there is to it. Now that we've saved our first design in the format we need for the machine, if we're doing more of these, let me show you a very simple way to be very productive in your software. First of all, as you recall, the last thing we did was remove the overlaps under the M. Well, we want to put those back. So all I have to do is come up here to the top and click my best friend, the undo button. Now you'll see stitches are back that were deleted. Now I'm going to come over here and change my letter. I already have the font up. I already have the height of the design I want it to be. And I can put in the letter, the letter E. Well, let's make it a capital E. And click Apply. Now I have an E. Let me select my background with the letter and go to Center Align. Before I save it, and I like really exactly where that put that one, I'm going to select the letter, right click, and say Remove Overlaps, so I get a really pretty clean stitching. Then I'm going to do File, Save As, and we'll say, we're going to call this Apron E, and it goes right back to the stick where I saved the other one, and EXP, and click Save. And I will have all of my designs on my stick or whatever media I need to take it to my machine, and just whip through these one after another as quick as can be. Let's go back to the project lesson and see the best way to embroider this on our apron.